In this video, I'm going to compare the Shun Premier 6.5-inch utility knife to the Wusthof Gourmet 6-inch utility knife. They actually call it a sandwich knife, but it is a utility knife. The reason I'm doing this, even though it's really weird because this is the highest end knife that Shun pretty much sells, and this is the lowest end knife that Wusthof sells, is because I've actually gotten more emails than you might think asking to compare the two. So I thought, why not? And I am doing that. Off the bat, again, as you would expect, these are two very different knives. The Shun is a forged, handmade knife from Japan. The Gourmet is essentially a machine-made stamped knife from Germany. And aside from that, the actual blades are very different. The Shun uses a 16-degree cutting angle, which is very thin and very sharp. The Wusthof uses a much duller 18.5-degree cutting angle. On top of that, the Shun uses VG Max, which is a notch above VG10, the current gold standard in knife making. So it's very hard, it's very resilient, and it holds an edge very well. The Gourmet uses their own special blend of steel, which is about a 58 hardness, so it's going to dull much quicker and lose an edge much quicker. And you're going to need to actually hone it and sharpen it much more often, so it does need much more maintenance. With that said, the Premier has two things going for it with the blade. Number one, they wrap each blade on either side with 34 layers of stainless steel, which does two things. First, you get this gorgeous Damascus finish on the bottom half of the blade, and second, it makes it very resilient to pitting and to rust and whatnot. And they go one step further and they actually do a hammered finish on the top half of the blade, which helps food release aside from making the knife look beautiful. Both knives have full tangs, which is great. The Premier has a brown pakkawood handle, and pakkawood is a compressed resin-filled wood, so it's very resilient. And the Gourmet has an equally resilient but plastic handle. They again both do have full tangs. The interesting thing is that the knife that's most ergonomic is actually the Shun Premier. Because of this little forged recession right there, when you hold the blade with a pinch grip, it fits very nicely, very snugly, and it gives you a great amount of control over the tip of the blade, which I like a lot. With that said, both have lifetime warranties, but the Premier also comes with lifetime sharpening, which I think is a deal breaker. The reason is because if you take your knife to a reputable sharpener who does things by hand, it's going to cost you roughly $5 per inch on a straight edge blade like these two to sharpen it. So for both of these knives, you'd be looking at about $30 per inch, or $30 for the actual knives, I would say, sorry. So for both of these knives, you'd be looking at about $30 for each knife, and even then you don't really know what the result's going to be. There are so many horror stories out there. With the Shun, you give it to them, they look at it, if they see any problems, they throw it away and give you a new knife. But otherwise, you can rest easy knowing they're going to put the exact same edge back on the knife as when you first fell in love with it, and they're going to do it for free, which I think is really a no-brainer. Either way, like I said, these are both in two very different categories, but I will say that if you want to get an entry-level knife, the one that I always suggest is the Shun Sora, and the reason for that is because it comes with all the benefits I listed here, plus the free sharpening, which I think is a deal breaker, and it's in the same price point as the Gourmet line. So I'll put a link down to all three below if you guys have any questions or comments or concerns. As always, let me know. Otherwise, I will talk to you very soon.